Thank you, General Rand. Colonel Square-Nina, would you please join General Rand? Ladies and gentlemen, we please ask you to stand for the presentation of the Prisoner of War Medal to Second Lieutenant Stephen M. Square-Nina, posthumous. Accepting on his behalf is his son, Lieutenant Colonel Timothy L. Square-Nina, United States Air Force retired. Citation to accompany the award of the Prisoner of War Medal to Second Lieutenant Stephen M. Square-Nina. Second Lieutenant Stephen M. Square-Nina is awarded the Prisoner of War Medal, posthumous, for his actions while interned in Switzerland from 18 March 1944 to 17 February 1945. On the morning of 18 March 1944, Lieutenant Square-Nina was assigned to his first combat mission as a fill-in for the navigator on the experienced crew of the Pistol Packin' Mama, a B-24, tail number 42-7513. After joining the formation over France for the long flight to Friedrichshafen, Germany, the number 1 engine began smoking and began losing power. Eventually, the pilot feathered the engine. Later, the supercharger on the number 4 engine failed and they fell out of formation. The pilot called Lieutenant Square-Nina for bearing. Lieutenant Square-Nina informed the pilot they were 250 miles from the coast and 60 miles from Switzerland. The ship was by itself at this point, so the pilot elected to attempt to make it to Switzerland. They were met by Swiss fighters and escorted to Dubendorf Field, where the plane barely cleared rooftops and cut a high-tension electric wire while landing. They were the first of a total of 16 American aircraft to land at Dubendorf that day. Upholding the finest traditions of the United States Army Air Corps, Lieutenant Square-Nina attempted to escape to France on 6 October 1944. He was captured by Swiss authorities and as punishment was imprisoned in Wawilimus prison camp, which was generally described by those sent there as a hellhole. Wawilimus had notoriously poor conditions. The prisoners slept on lice-infested straw, were malnourished, and had virtually no hygiene facilities or access to medical care. Following complaints by the United States delegation, Lieutenant Square-Nina and others were released from Wawilimus on 13 November 1944. On 22 December 1944, Lieutenant Square-Nina again attempted to escape and was again captured. For this attempt, he was sent to Les Diablerets prison. He was repatriated in an exchange of 482 airmen for 1,288 Germans on 17 February 1945. The actions of Lieutenant Square-Nina and his endurance under extreme conditions reflect great credit upon himself and the United States Army Air Corps.
Thank you. I'd like to, first of all, thank General Rand for coming and presenting this medal to my father, General Buda, for coming also. I'd also like to thank our singer, Staff Sergeant Rachel Wilson, our proffer, Sergeant Bitkin, and our narrator, Sergeant Sutherland. Appreciate all of them, their hard work. Also the people from the protocol office. Rocky Flores is not here today, but Sean Patterson has been working with me for the last couple months on this, and appreciate their hard work on this as well. Thank you to all the veterans for coming and their spouses. I really appreciate you all coming here. I really wanted to have it here so you could come and be here with me today. Appreciate that for all of you coming. First question I've been asked a lot is why is this happening after all this time? The Prisoner of War Medal was authorized in 1985. The original legislation was that you had to be a prisoner of an enemy combatant. And the first question that came up in the next year or so was, well, what about the Pueblo prisoners? What about the Iran hostage military people? And so in 1988, the legislation went through to award the POW medal to people that were held in conditions similar to a POW in a hostile nation. And so that opened the door for others to receive the medal. In 2001, I sent a letter to the Air Force asking for a medal for my father, and I got an answer in 2003 that said, we can't verify the conditions under which he was held, and we're sending this on to another office to look at this, and I never heard anything else again. Well, I was not as persistent as a young Army officer by the name of Dwight Mears. Dwight recently was medically retired as a major in the Air Force, but back in 2001 and 2003, he was doing the same thing I was. And he got almost the exact same letter I got in 2003. But he said, no, I'm not going to put up with this. His grandfather rather, was a pilot that crashed on the same day as my father, and he died in the early 70s, and so Dwight actually never met his grandfather. But Dwight persisted. He was a helicopter pilot and crashed in Iraq, broke his back, nearly died, and so he came back and went to graduate school and became a historian and stayed in the Army rather, but did his dissertation on the Swiss attorneys. And he actually went to Switzerland, and the Swiss are very good at record keeping, and he went through all the records over there. And he actually sent me copies of the interrogation of my father when he tried to escape. It's all in German, but it says basically he wanted to rejoin the family and so forth, and that type of thing. And he documented that there were 169 prisoners or internees in Switzerland out of about 1,700 who tried to escape and were captured and was sent to the Wawelmermis camp, which you heard was described as a hellhole. As a result of that, he worked with some people and went to Congress and actually got additional legislation in 2011 that resulted in the Air Force being directed to consider the Swiss attorneys for the POW medal. A year or so ago, on April 30th, I think it was last year, my wife and I were on a cruise down to Panama. I was in the shower on the ship, and my wife was watching Fox News, and I heard her yelling, "Tim, they're giving medals to the Swiss attorneys." What happened was there were 8 survivors from Wawelmermis who were honored by the Chief of Staff of the Air Force last year. I came back from the cruise, did a little bit of research on the web, found a CBS article, and the first thing I found was a picture of 150 approximately officers in a picture, one of which was my father. And so I contacted Major Mears, who was teaching at West Point last year, and said, my father's in this picture, and my father was at the Wawelmermis camp, and he sent me some email, and so we got going, and the result was he sent my information to the Air Force, and he sent it again a couple times, and I sent my information to the Air Force, and nothing much was happening. Last November, 2 staffers from Senator Cornyn's office were here and spoke to the Republican Club, and after the meeting I said, hey, could you help me out with this? And they said, sure. And so I owe some thanks to Senator Cornyn's office as well, because they prodded the Air Force a little bit, and the medal had already been authorized. It was just a matter of verifying that this was the right family to give it to, and so they did that finally. And then in February I was contacted by Rocky Flores, and he said that probably General Labuda would come and give me the presentation, and then the next day he called and said, General Rand is going to do it. And I was really amazed, to be honest. I didn't expect to get to this level, but I really deeply appreciate that, and thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Colonel Squarnino. This concludes the ceremony at this time. We would please like the audience to join us in singing the Air Force song, and we ask that you please remain in place until our official party and their families have departed.
Give it a minute.
It's one song I have to remember.
I know this song. Okay, here we go. Off we go
into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, zooming to meet our thunder. Atom boys, give her the gun, give her the gun. Down we dive, spouting our flames from under. Off with one hell of a roar. We live in fame, or down in flame. Hey, nothing can stop the U.S. Air Force.
I would just like to say one thing there. My father always sang it, obviously. Army Air Corps. We do have actually one member here today that actually was in the transition from the Army Air Corps to the Air Force, and that's Bernie back here, and appreciate him being here too.